Find the largest float. In this problem, we are provided a network diagram, which includes 8 activities. These activities are represented as boxes. A predecessor activity points an arrow to its successor activity. The cells in each activity box are in units of time, which represent the earliest the activity can start, the duration of time it takes the activity to be completed, the earliest the activity can finish, the latest the activity can start, the total float of the activity, and the latest the activity can finish. The problem asks to find the largest float, f, which means the largest value of total float of individual activities in the project. In this problem, we'll finish the forward pass through the network. Then we'll trace back and compute the total float of each activity, so we can find the largest float. The early start of activity G equals the maximum value between the early finish of activity D and the early finish of activity E and the early finish of activity H, which equals 29. The early finish of activity G equals the early start of activity G plus the duration of activity G, which equals 35. Now we can begin our backward pass, or sometimes called traceback, to calculate the total float of each activity. The total float of an activity equals the late finish minus the early finish, which is the same value as the late start minus the early start. For activity G, the total float equals 42 minus 35, which equals 7. The late start of activity G equals the late finish of activity G minus the duration of activity G, which equals 36. The late finish of all activities whose sole successor activity is activity G is equal to the late start of activity G, which is 36. The total float for activities D, E, and H compute to 14, 15, and 7, respectively. The latest start of activities D and E are computed by subtracting the duration from the late finish, and equal 32 and 35, respectively. This means the late finish of activities A, B, and F equal 32, 35, and 35, respectively. This makes the total float of these 3 activities equal to 14, 21, and 15, respectively. The late start of activity F equals 35 minus 12, which equals 23. 23 is also the latest finish of activity C, which means the total float